Greetings, everyone. This is Virtuous Roots, where we reclaim virtue to bring it to our home and yours. And I'm Thomas McCuddy.
And I'm Thomas Quackenbush.
And I'm Nick Wiegand, and today the conversation is going to revolve around the role of the mother in the home. And it seems like one of those kind of apparent, obvious roles because, in most households, the mom, the wife, is really kind of the cornerstone of many of the homes. So, what do you think let's kind of like kick it off, the primary role?
I think with moms, as God has made us different, moms tend to be the ones that are more nurturing, that we see this. And I know it happens. And a lot of people think, not all women are nurturing. I get that. But the majority of the time, it's going to be the mom. Like when you want the soothing, like this is why they call out for their mom. Mom will run and make it better. There's a sense that you look to the moms for that, and they bring that balance, because if you have guys that tend to be, a little less emotional and more reserved, they tend to be harder, then you do get that balance. You get that it's actually a really good balance between the nurture and also the strengthening in body and character. We need
Mm.
both of those things. And so again, that's traditionally, I would say, or statistically, that's what we see from moms. And it's not a bad thing. It's not the kind of thing, I think sometimes our society wants us to break free of all those tendencies. But one of the things I've tried to encourage women, like if that's how you are and that's who you are, embrace that. Like just because, well, that's just kind of what moms are. It's like, but that's a good thing.
Mm.
Because if you don't have that in the home, where are they going to get that from? How are you going to get
Right,
that?
right.
So you have to take that in consideration.
Well, I mean, the idea that, society wants to kind of break free of those gender roles and gender norms is kind of what you're saying. That same society, that same culture are the ones that say things along the lines of, well, she's just a mom
Mm.
Mhm.
or she's just a wife. And they've created such a culture of downplaying
Mhm.
the importance of that role and knowing that, I mean, honestly, I think that role is more important than
Oh, yeah.
anything else that they
Mm.
can do anywhere else. And just like I think the role of father is also important. So, but we're focusing on the role of mother here.
Mm.
Mhm.
So I think that's where we see this sometimes with homeschool conventions, like, my being mom is my superpower, those kinds of things. And it highlights that you're not just a mom. And like for those particularly who are the stay-at-home moms,
Mhm.
they're like, well, what, I don't really do anything significant. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I was like, that is significant. Like you may not, as what happens when you go out the home and you get a career, you may not be paid for it, but the importance of the work is not based upon your salary.
Mhm.
And I think that there's a bigger payoff for investing in the children, because there's a sense that with your career, and this is something that I think our society has sort of keyed in on, is that if you die, you're going to have, your job is going to be posted the next day.
Yeah.
Your company, you know can live without you, but the family needs that mom. And that,
Right.
there's an importance there. And this is what I've even seen in my years of youth pastoring. I've seen cases where teenagers had moms that were very absent, that were like we would get phone calls on weekends. Like, I don't this is a case where it was a single mom, and like, I don't know where my mom is. She hasn't come home for days. And and this some of these teenagers were in many sense neglected, but they wanted the love of their mother so badly. And it was heart-wrenching that that's all they wanted. They just
Yeah.
wanted their mom. And I think
And they're willing to put themselves through just everything
right.
to get that.
And so this is why I don't want to minimize what it means to be a mom. I
Yeah.
think this is what a lot of women need to hear, because the world is sending that message. Oh, you're just a mom, or oh, you don't really have a job. And it's difficult day in and day out being that mom and fulfilling that role,
Yeah.
because you don't get vacation days. Not really. Not like you do with a
It's like
career.
the very definition of a thankless job. Like, they do, 'cause especially they they believe in and a purpose, like what they're doing, and especially stay-at-home moms, or those have the privilege of being homeschool moms, or those types of things. They recognize that they're doing the right thing, but sometimes that pressure of always, because that's why I'm just a mom. Well, you're much more than that. You manage, and I think as you look at Proverbs 31, as we'll get to that in a moment, it's not just you're doing this, you're managing the household. You're doing, I think if they realize the significance of the role that they play in the home, just holding everything together, so that the father could, go out and work and have a place to come home to, a family that's been, because I always think of too that women take what, they beautify things by their very nature. They're like they take things and they make them into something beautiful. Like that's and I like that's one of those things, making your house a home type of idea. I think that that's not something to be underplayed either.
I think it's worth mentioning real quick. I remember when my mom would always decorate for Christmas, and it would annoy me because I had to help doing all those decorations. But thinking back on it now, I think of that principle. Like, she tried to make those times special, and
Yeah.
she tried to bring that beauty like during the holiday time. And again, I think it goes back to some of that thanklessness. Like, at the time, I was like, oh, I got to help mom do this. But now, like I said, looking back, that's one of the few things like she did like that,
Mhm.
and I appreciate that. Like, I have that to cling to.
And that
I
So,
want to, I want to, I mean, that thankless job idea, I feel like if a mom is feeling like it's a thankless job, then the household is failing her.
mhm.
I feel like if the mom thinks it's
Yeah,
thankless and the husband's failing that and the children are failing that, that the husband hasn't instilled in his children to be,
grateful.
grateful, showing gratitude. So
Yeah, that
I'm
makes
just going to throw that one out there.
well, no, I think that's a good point, because just I think one of the marriages in general benefit from just acknowledging each other, and from both perspectives.
Sure. Yeah.
And for fathers that come home and just every once in a while just be like, You're doing like fantastic job in our home. I just want you to know that."
And for the ladies who don't get that, for who are in that situation, I think that's some of the encouragement that needs to be given to them, is that there's an element that for all of us who have to engage their children who grow up, for all of us who have to who end up engaging again from the family that they've developed. Like, there's almost a sense in which I want to say thank you to
Yeah,
the ladies out there.
yeah,
They may not, and again, you may not hear it in your own home, but I think this is why these kinds of episodes are important, and the focus on mothers, because there is that sense for those who aren't the mothers, for the fathers, for the kids. I'm always like, there's in some sense when we have the Mother's Day, the Father's Day, this is the time to really help the children understand what they have
yeah.
and to appreciate that.
Well,
And it's difficult.
I think that's like I mean, that's what's so great about holidays. It's supposed to do that. I mean, we have holidays, we celebrate those, but especially the Mother's Day, even though we know we ought to, it's just like, we had Resurrection Sunday a few Sundays ago, and you recognize that, like, yeah, we should be celebrating Christ's resurrection every Sunday, which we do. But, there's a day where it all comes together and we remember them in this special day. Like, I think it is important for us to have that reflection during that period of time.
And I think it's not just for companies to create
Yeah.
and sell
Some of them
cards.
are.
Yeah.
Some of them do.
Why did you look at me when you said that? Because you
Oh,
know how
because
I feel about this.
I know exactly how you feel about this. And so that's why I immediately said,
Hey, for the record, it's not Mother's Day I take issue with. It's Valentine's Day that I won't celebrate. And if I show up on Valentine's Day and I realize that I haven't shown my wife my love and care for her throughout the year, I have failed there. And likewise, if you show up on Mother's Day and you realize you haven't done your job, do your job. Anyway, don't look at me and say those things.
I think we had
So I'm going to read Proverbs 31, and I'm going to start at 25 because I could read the whole thing because it's phenomenal. But strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised.
mm,
So, one of the things that you had mentioned, Thomas, was and you guys were kind of talking about the thankless job and it's just a job. And whilst people may not know outwardly of the job that is being done, like someone may not be able to come to her and say, you've done a great job. One example is my daughter is in college right now and she's dating this young man
Mhm.
who I know his parents. I've met them and we've had dinner with them, but I don't know them well by any means, right? Like you can have dinner with anybody and they can put on a good show for a couple of hours. But this young man, the way he has been raised and the way he treats my daughter and the way he works and the way he does everything in his life, you can see that he was raised very well. And his mom homeschooled like 7 boys.
Mm.
And I really even haven't had the pleasure to meet the other brothers, but if they are even like partly like this kid, then she has done an incredible job. And through her one sacrifice, I don't know what you want to call what a mother is, but through her honoring God well, she's impacting this world 7 different times. I think it's 7. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but
Mhm.
it's like she's impacting this world 7 different times by her willingness to homeschool these boys and really make a huge impact on the world around her by just the fruits of her labor by spending that time. So the impact that that one woman has had on this world is actually pretty impressive.
Mhm.
And I think this is where it becomes the challenge for us because we will sometimes recognize, oh, this is a guy whose parents have raised him well. A lot of people in the world just look at the guy and they're like, you're just a fantastic guy. And they forget that that fantastic guy was shaped and molded
Mhm.
many times, again, by parents.
Well, what
And
me growing up, and so this is just I don't know if it's generational or where I grew up. Homeschool kids were weird, right? Like that's the way we were.
Mhm.
I didn't know anybody who was homeschooled.
Mhm.
So when I met him and I found out he was homeschooled, I was like, "What?" Like he is one of the best young men I've met. Right? Like it's
Mhm.
I mean, he's truly impressive. And so all of a sudden it's like you were homeschooled. And so that's why I look at it and go, yeah, I'm not going to just look at him because when I found out he was homeschooled with 7 brothers or 6 brothers or whatever, you're like, that poor woman. Like that's the first thing that I thought of was that poor woman. But just to see the character that has come through. So
Mhm.
I didn't have a choice but to recognize it when I started talking to him.
Right, and that's where we start thinking like, well, what kind of virtues do you have to have in order to do something like that? Like, we have 3 boys, and I already know, like, some of the trials we have with just 3, so I can't imagine double plus 1. Like,
I
in
can't
in
either.
in that scenario, we start talking about these qualities like fortitude, the courage, and just the stamina that's necessary, the prudence and the wisdom to be able to deal with them, and especially when you're dealing with boys, they tend to lack prudence themselves and to understand how to deal with them,
Yeah, they do.
and trying to figure out how are they going to misunderstand these things and circumvent that, because sometimes that saves you a lot of trouble in the long run. This is why, as we talk about moms, this is also what I think I don't like to do is I don't want to communicate that, we obviously talk about these virtues. We talk about what we're trying to be. We're trying to be Christ-like in many ways. And it is a standard that we're always growing in. And it's not the case that particularly, and I think about some of these where we see the results and we think, oh, wow, that it must have just been this smooth sailing and rainbows. Like there was probably a lot of blood and a lot of,
It's funny you say that because some of the stories, there was a lot of blood.
oh, yeah.
Like
Like,
like, when he tells me stories, I'm like, "Okay, this poor woman." I mean, I'm sure I
mhm.
mean, don't get me wrong, like, I've met his dad. His dad's cool too, but his dad had a job, right? So mom was doing it. Mom was holding it down and raising these boys.
And that's where I think where women are, the encouragement is that they look at sometimes these end products and they're like, "Oh, I'll never end that way." But that was a long road. You got to
Sure
think
was, yeah.
because that's kind of one thing. Every time you have a child, you're like, "Okay, reset the clock. It's going to take 18 more years,
Minimum.
18 more years,
It's
minimum." And so you look at this, and I think women look and they compare, And I remind them, your kids are not their kids. You have a specific gifting. Think of it that way. God has given you these things, and we have to embrace that. And there is a sense, for each mother, you are the mother that you are.
Mm,
You're not some other mother. Don't be the other the other mom. Be yourself for those kids. That's what they want. And be what I encourage, be the best version. Like you're not going to achieve that perfection, but as you grow in Christ likeness, you will grow in your ability to be the mother that Christ has called you to be.
That's so important.
mhm,
So important to, yeah, because with the age of crunchy moms, I'm proud of myself for knowing that one. Crunchy moms on the internet, basically all the homeschool moms who sit there and talk about how they homeschool, it's really easy to compare yourself to
mhm.
all of the other moms out there who are holding it down a very specific way and saying like that's who I'm supposed to be. It's like you're right. Don't be them.
For all the women who are like, "What is a crunchy mom?" That's not a bad thing. I'm not even fully qualified to talk about it. Like my wife mentions that, but it's always a positive thing. Very, it's good. So when you Google it,
Like
I encourage you.
homesteady, healthy
This is
parent.
outside our realm.
Okay, I
We
should
can't.
just
Yeah,
stop talking.
yeah,
Okay,
pretty
yeah.
much. Let's change something on that.
Uh, but the whole point was don't compare your like what you were saying. Don't compare yourself to what the ideal is placed on the socials of the medias, right? Like
Mhm.
Yeah, and then they're gonna
it's
everybody gets to pick and choose what pictures go up there and what kind of, that's what, you always you're seeing them at their best as Thomas mentioned earlier, like how, you know, and I think that's the hardest thing. I think with a lot of the homeschool moms and my sons play basketball, and I was talking to them, and that's they're coming out, their whole experience, a lot of social life is on social media because they're at home with their kids, and so that's what they're getting. That's the kind of, the influence that they're getting, like, "Oh, man, this mom looks like she has everything together. Look at all the smiling faces on all her kids, and her kids are, like, having a tantrum or something." Like, it's like, you just don't see that, you don't see the other side of it. Everybody has their trials. No one's perfect. No one comes into this world like that other than Jesus himself. So, like,
well, I want to make sure that we've spent most of this already talking about like the idea of the stay-at-home mom or the
mhm,
homeschool mom, but a majority of the population
yeah,
isn't blessed to be able to do that. So we have single moms out there. We have moms who work a job. We have moms who work two jobs. While that makes the role in the home exponentially harder, what is their role then still?
In those cases, like my mom, she sort of played both roles. She was stay-at-home mom for a while, but I've always been clear in my testimony. I went to private schools solely for safety reasons from where I lived. That was the option back in the day, back
Mhm.
in the 80s and 90s. And so I remember she ended up taking a job scrubbing toilets at a restaurant one time, and that was how they were making ends meet. And there's that element. I think that's one of the more like the greater things I view from her. She later on got her degree in accounting and worked at a community college, which again, that was much more prestige than what she was doing earlier. But I look back, I always remember that how she did what she needed to do in order to keep me safe, in order to provide for me.
I mean, that goes to the Proverbs 31 wife
Right.
as well. She makes linen garments and sells them. She delivers sashes to the merchant. She had that business mindset of, having to care for the home.
Mhm.
So I mean, that lines up biblically as well. So it's not all about just, crafting all day. I'm just joking. I don't want to,
hmm.
downplay anything,
Well,
but it is such a, you know, the Proverbs 31 woman has a lot on her plate.
Situations are different, and I think that's why, when we look especially for the moms, the single moms, this is why the church is so critical to help support families because
mhm,
again, there's a sense when single moms feel like it's all falling apart and they can't do this, there's a sense they're not meant to. That's not God's design, and we know that. But I also always encourage we can't unscramble eggs. And that's where the church should be there to help pick up the pieces. The church should many times, and I've encouraged in the case of with single moms who have boys, the church has men that these boys can look up to.
Mhm.
They have men who can be that influence in their life, and I've always been aware of that as a youth pastor.
But
Like,
it isn't even that
No, absolutely.
doesn't even have to be single moms, like,
mm,
that can be all moms, 'cause even in, like, the best of households,
Yeah.
sometimes people get overwhelmed, and
mhm,
they need to reach out to the church as well. I mean, that's what we're supposed to be as a family.
Yeah, and well, we live in a military town, so we have, especially my church, we have a lot of folks that are deploying. So we have to make sure that the mom's taken care of, and they have kids, and make sure that we have deacons or pastor visits, and just make sure that they're okay. Because a lot of these women, they know what it's like to be a military mom and wife, and they just grim and bear it, and they'll suffer a lot before they ask for help. But I mean, we make it attention that we know when their husbands are going away, and making sure that we have like ladies, maybe like making sure checking in on them, or just maybe like giving them a day off, or watching their kids, or giving them some time for just to ease that burden just a little bit. I think, well, even going to James, when he talked about religion in the book of James, he focuses on the orphans and the widows, and because in that time they were the ones, if you're an orphan, you're probably just going to die, if you don't have anybody there to take care of you. And same with the widows at that time. And I think that the church, I think it designed by God to help people in those situations. We're not supposed to just judge people and keep them on the outside. We're supposed to embrace them and like find and meet their needs when need be.
But I wanna make sure that we don't only focus on that help on those that
Yes.
are in the most need, because, you and I had a conversation the other day about just simply asking the church for help with a ride,
mhm.
and how most people look at that as, like, "You can do that?" No, like, we are supposed to lean on each other.
Yeah.
You are supposed to lean on
Yeah.
the other moms in the church and the other fathers in the church, and we are supposed to just kinda do this
'Cause
together.
I think, I've been thinking about this lately, is like, as I'm growing in my church and getting closer, and it takes time. It's like you go in, you know everybody, almost like a bunch of strangers meeting together for church, and then you get to know them, and you get to know their struggles, their past, their all the things that are going on, their needs, even before, like, they have them, because you recognize those patterns, you care about these people, and yeah, across the board, I think that's the church's role in this whole thing.
So let me offer this wild idea as we're winding down, because we're coming up on Mother's Day, and I know our traditional mode of operation is, well, what am I going to do for my mom, and like, being married, what am I going to do for my spouse?
Mm.
Maybe part of the emphasis this year, think about those other moms. Think about the ones who aren't yours. How can you minister? How can you bless?
Yeah,
How can
that's
you
good.
be that force of good to those moms, and especially those who are, again, the need may not be like desperate and grim, but those who could just use that extra thank you for what you do coming from outside their
Yeah.
home,
Mhm.
I think will hit differently, and I think that it would be good. So that's my encouragement, because you don't have to be. The fun thing is, I mean, you probably have several moms around you that you could say
Right.
that you could appreciate. And we were just talking. I have a lady back home. I consider her my second mom, and that's how I treat her.
Mhm.
And she's been that for me, and I've been very much aware of like her needs, like the issues that she has in her family, and I had issues in my family, but there's a way we just helped each other,
Mhm.
and we're supposed to be that in the
Yeah,
church.
absolutely.
So that's the call I really give for
Mhm.
those who are listening.
And they can just so nobody feels as if it's a thankless job, I am gonna close out again with the end of Proverbs 31, verse 28. Her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. And so don't, there's no reason that in this on Mother's Day or in this role that it should be thankless because we should be thanking and showing that
Absolutely.
respect, and it shouldn't just be on a singular day. So thank you for the conversation, gentlemen. You can find us at familiesofvirtue.com, and our podcast can be found on all streaming platforms under Virtuous Roots. We will talk to you next time. God bless.